So, do the physical constants embed evidence that we're in a simulation? In a physical universe, mass, space, and time are immutable. They are very real, and indeed, they define what physical means. Conversely, if we are in a computer simulation, something like the 1999 film The Matrix, but programmed by a god instead, then the reverse is true. Our mass, space, and time are programmed functions built into the universe source code itself. Fortunately, there is a way to test this. Professor Kaku called our universe a free lunch. It's because it takes no energy to create a universe. Universes are for free. Our universe also seems to have no net charge. There seem to be as many electrons as protons. And so batteries work because we can separate charges locally, even although the sum universe itself is neutral. And so we can use electricity and still have our free lunch. But then what about the fabric of our universe, that mass, space, and time itself? Can that also be included in the free lunch? Now, in a physical universe, the answer is no, because physical implies and requires that somehow mass is, that time is, length or space is, that these are very real concepts and they form our reality. However, if this universe is a simulation, then it sits on the hard disk of God's computer. This means that ultimately there is no physical universe. We are just data. And so when seen from the inside, our universe looks very big. But when seen from the outside, there is no universe. The simulation, therefore, is the ultimate free lunch universe, but that means that mass, space, and time must be interconnected. And so, although I see a massive universe around me, the sum universe itself is just data in God's computer. And so mass, space, and time, like charge and energy, would have to cancel. For example, from 0, I can make plus numbers and minus numbers, as many numbers as I want, as long as they, the plus numbers, when combined with the minus numbers, still total to 0. I haven't broken any mathematical rules. I started with 0, and regardless of how many numbers I generate, I still have 0 as the sum. The same would apply to mass, space, and time in a simulation. The universe can make as much time as it wants, the time to give this presentation, for example, as long as the universe equally creates enough mass and space to balance the free lunch equation. The universe getting larger and more massive as I speak. A free lunch universe cannot create time without simultaneously creating mass and space. Likewise, if time went backwards, the universe would have to shrink in size and mass, so that at any moment between the Big Bang and now, all the mass, space, and time, when combined, must sum to 0. And so if we can find evidence of this correspondence between mass, space, and time, then we probably are in a simulation. And for this evidence, or for this correspondence, we looked at physical constants. The basic units of our universe are mass, length, time, and charge. And to measure these, science uses the units kilograms, meters, seconds, and amperes. We also notice certain phenomena like gravity and the speed of light. These don't change, so we call them constants. And we end up with numbers like the gravitational constant g and the speed of light c. Because they relate to the structure of the universe, they're called physical constants. And because they describe our mass, space, time universe, we measure them using our mass, space, time units. For example, the units for velocity are length and time, and so we measure the speed of light in meters per second or miles per second. The speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. This means that in 1 second, light will travel 186,000 miles or 300,000 kilometers. Here we are using the units for distance and time. The units for mass, length, time, and charge are independent of each other. We cannot measure the distance between Tokyo and London using amperes and kilograms, for example. For science, these are called fundamental constants because they are the fundamental measures of our physical universe. However, in a simulation universe, all these would be false assumptions. And so the answer to the question, are we in a simulation or not, would show up as anomalies within these constants. If we are in a simulation, then mass, space, and time would be coded routines within the simulation source code. We will use this blue object to represent that coded routine for mass. We measure mass in pounds or kilograms, and so we can convert from this coded mass unit to 1 kilogram or 1 pound by adding a scalar, which is that gray region. This is because we measure mass in terms of kilograms, or 1 kilogram or 1 pound. My laptop weighs 3 pounds, which is 3 units of 1 pound. And so we add this conversion factor, this gray region, to convert from the coded unit for mass, that blue object, to our familiar pounds and kilograms. This orange object will represent space. We measure space in miles or kilometers, so we add a scalar, that gray region, to convert this coded space unit to 1 mile. This green object can represent time. Again, we use a scalar, this gray region, to convert this coded unit of time to our unit of time, which of course is 1 second. The colored regions are the actual mass, length, and time built into the universe source code, and so used by the universe itself. These gray regions are just conversion factors that we use so that we can use our familiar units. The problem we have to solve is determining which part is the colored region, that coded unit, and which part is the gray region. In other words, if the speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second, which part of that number 300,000 is the real speed of light, and which part is just our conversion factor? The same with our gravitational constant, our mass of the electron, and so on. Which is the real unit, the simulation coded unit, and which is just the conversion factor we are using to get our human units, our meters and seconds? Aliens will have their own units, and so their conversion factors will be different to ours, but the same principle holds. In a simulation universe, the objects for mass, space, and time must somehow be able to connect with each other so that we can, for example, put planets inside space and time. Here we combine our mass object with our length object. We see that some of the gray region has cancelled. We then add our time object. We now have a mass, space, time object that has no gray region. The gray regions have cancelled. So we started with our pounds and miles and kilograms and seconds, but ended up with only those coded objects, our conversion factors that give us numbers like 186,000 or 300,000 are just numbers of convenience. They do not exist, and so we can cancel them. Aliens would have different gray regions because they would use their own alien units, but if they also combine their mass, space, and time, as in this diagram, their gray regions would also disappear, for they also are simply numbers of convenience, and so they will also end up with exactly that same mass, space, time object. We could even use this approach as a common language should we ever meet aliens. We now have one super object which embeds our mass, space, and time, but itself is unitless. And so if it doesn't have units to measure it by, then it cannot be measured. It just is. Perhaps this is what is meant when God said to Moses, "I am that I am." For a God, by definition, also has no physical parameters by which a God can be measured. Conversely, a physical universe, by definition, can be measured, for that is what defines a physical universe. The key challenge for the simulation programmer, therefore, is how to create physical mass, space, and time from mathematical structures. If we can break up this mass, space, time super object and extract the mass, space, and time objects from inside it and then use them to build our matter universe of planets and stars. Then we can build a physical universe from mathematical objects. In a purely physical universe, however, these units and constants are fundamental, which means we cannot do this. If we combine mass, length, and time in a physical universe, then we still have mass, length, and time. But in a simulation universe source code, mathematical objects are a prerequisite. So we start by combining our physical constants in such a way that our human units, these gray regions, if we are in a simulation, will cancel, leaving behind the real units, those colored objects. I won't go into details here, the links are listed at the end, but what emerges is the following. The coded object for mass is 1 unit of universe mass is apparently just a single point. The object for time is pi, and so 1 unit of universe time is a rotation. The object for length is a circular geometry. Velocity is simply length over time. In the following examples, which I'm including here to illustrate the concept, the right column are constructs of these coded objects. The left column uses our physical constants, which are measured in pounds and miles and seconds. But as you can see, the numbers on the left precisely match the numbers on the right. This means that those conversion factors, those gray regions, must have cancelled. Our pounds, miles, and seconds have gone. The left column for aliens will be different, of course. It will depend on the units that they are using. But their right column will be the same. Their conversion factors will also have cancelled. This can only be explained by the simulation hypothesis. We also find a combination of our constants which forms a superobject, and upon study we see that this superobject is actually the electron itself. This means that there is no physical electron. The electron is just a mathematical formula. We can write it on a paper, but we cannot carry it in our hand. However, embedded within that electron are those objects for mass, space, and time. If our electron is a mathematical structure, and if our matter universe is made up of mathematical electrons, then our matter universe is a mathematical universe. The total universe does not exist in any material sense. These physical constant anomalies are telling us that we're in a simulation.
This isn't real.